Hello everybody, my name is KingStix. I'm super excited to announce that patch 8.13 has just dropped. It is live on the player versus player servers right now. There's a whole lot of cleanup in this patch that I'm really excited about. Let's just jump right into it. Now, first off, Aatrox got a rework. This is one part that I'm not a huge fan of. Currently on OPGG, who's actually ranked the #1 top laner based off of his win rate and pick rate. He's very, very strong with the Rageblade and Titanic Hydra. So with this rework, I personally think it's a nerf. I suppose it's for his overall health, but I know a lot of Aatrox mains aren't happy about this. Irelia is getting nerfs pretty much across the board since she's so out of tune right now. She's getting nerfs on her passive, while getting a little bit of an attack speed buff to make up for the damage you're taking away from it. And then on her W, we are seeing damage decreases. Then on her E, it's no longer going to last for 6 seconds. It's only going to last for 5, so she can't just let it sit there for so long. And then her ultimate as well, the mark duration is only for 5 seconds now instead of 6. I think Irelia is still going to be a very strong champion. This will help to bring her back into tune and take away power from her. So maybe now mid lane or bot lane Irelia won't be quite as strong, but you are still going to be seeing a lot of her. Kindred is getting some bug fixes. I wouldn't even bother. She's still a garbage champion. Lucian is one of the only viable AD carries in the bot lane right now, so I'm a little bit surprised to see that they're nerfing him rather than buffing other AD carries. He's getting attack damage growth nerf, and he's also getting massive clear to his ultimate by 200%, which is pretty big. Lucian's still going to be good, but I don't really see why they felt like they needed to do this nerf. Pyke is getting buffs pretty much straight across the board. The only nerf he's getting here is his health growth is being cut by 10, but he's getting an armor growth buff, magic resist growth buff, and then we're seeing attack damage buffs to his E on the base damage and ratio growth on his E and R, which I think is kind of crazy. Definitely expect to see a lot of Pykes because he's such a strong champion, especially if he does manage to get ahead. Gragas is still a garbage tier jungler. He's rated like, I think he's the lowest rated jungler right now on OPGG, so they're giving him some very simple bandage buffs rather than a rework or actually buffing the mage jungle item. They're actually making his W way shorter on cooldown. Instead of being 8 seconds at level 1, it's going to be 5 seconds period. And then we also see that, and they're also adding a little bit of auto attack range to his W as well, similar to how Jax's W adds a little bit of range to his auto attack. Now Gragas could auto attack you and then W a little bit easier, especially if you're slightly faster than him or if you're mid dash. Jarvan can't really compete with people like Xin Zhao and Pantheon in the jungle right now, so we're seeing some bandage buffs. Now his E does a minimum of 20 damage. That's not that big of a deal. More importantly, his E now starts on an 11-second cooldown. The base damage is also getting a massive buff of 20 damage, which is huge. Whenever you buff anything by 20 damage or more at level 1, it typically makes the champion unbalanced, or at least it puts them in a good spot in the early game. So seeing that extra 20 damage at level 1 is going to be a pretty big deal, especially since he usually maxes his E last. Jinx is going to turn into a late game machine with this buff. Now her Q rocket bonus damage can crit. So if you can get Jinx full items into the late game, she's probably going to be the strongest AD carry right now. Her W damage is also being increased by a decent amount. It's by 0.2, 20%. So definitely expect to see some more Jinx, especially if she's dual with her support. Speaking of AD carries that are underpowered, Kalista is getting a buff on her Rend. It isn't that big of a buff, but it will help her a little bit in the late game, which is where she definitely struggles. I don't think they're doing enough for Kalista, but this is definitely a step in the right direction. Kassadin's W now costs 1 mana instead of 0, and it's having its AP ratio increased by 0.1. His E and R are also getting 0.1 AP ratio increases. I'm not quite sure why they made his W cost 1 mana. Probably to do with some coding, maybe since it costs 0 mana, it's not interacting with certain items properly. Orianna got a shield nerf in the last patch, so I'm not surprised to see this since she's not that good of a mid laner right now anyways. Her W is now on a 2-second lower cooldown. Riven can't compete with strong bruisers like Irelia and Fiora right now, so she is going to be getting a health regen buff right now live on the player versus player servers from 5.5 HP to 7, which is actually a really big deal. It's going to be a lot harder to poke her down with that stat buff. They are also pulling 10 seconds off of her ultimate's cooldown at level 1. I don't know if Riven will be one of the stronger bruisers now, but this will definitely help her from getting poked down in lane. Tristana is getting a very bandage buff. It's not even worth mentioning. Basically, her E does a little bit more damage, scales better with AD, especially in the later ranks. Tryndamere struggled after all these crit nerfs and after they took away Essence Reaver's ability to scale off of how much crit you have. So I'm not surprised to see this buff. However, it is kind of annoying. It won't really affect you in the early game though. Basically, in Tryndamere's last level of his E, it's 2 seconds less. So in the late game, Tryndamere, this will help him out a lot. especially if he does manage to get cooldown through items like Black Cleaver, Essence Reaver. If he can get 40% CDR with his -2 seconds on his E in its final rank, he could be very, very annoying to deal with, because if he lands a crit and it's only on a 7-second cooldown plus his 40% CDR, his dash could basically be on a 2-second cooldown. Thank God Twitch, a useless AD carry who's not viable, is getting a buff after they nerfed him a while back, probably 6 or 7 patches ago. They nerfed his E scalability. So his maximum damage ratio on his E scaling with AD went from 1.5 bonus attack damage to 2.1 bonus attack damage. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but this could potentially influence his early game burst to the point of actually getting a kill. This will definitely help out Twitch jungle, especially. You might even go warrior to take advantage of that early bonus attack damage increase on his E, since you're going to be maxing it anyways. It's having that extra damage is going to be a big deal, and probably going Bork right after your warrior. Okay, now these are some simple nerfs. Camille is getting a nerf on her E's base damage. Dr. Mundo is getting a nerf on his E's attack damage, which is kind of surprising because Dr. Mundo's kind of shit anyways. He's only good in the early and mid game, and they're nerfing the damage on it in the late game, so I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. They are killing the boosting strategy. Now Master Yi's Q no longer does bonus damage to minions. To compensate, they are making the mana cost less, so maybe top lane or mid lane Master Yi by itself will be more viable. But the strategy where him and his jungler just shove out mid really quick and do jungle camps, I don't think that will be near as strong, since it doesn't do any bonus damage to minions anymore. And the 𝐒𝐿𝐿 boosting strategy is pretty much dead. They hacked the ability power scaling on his W from 40% to 20%, which is huge. It's the only reason why 𝐒𝐿𝐿 was even viable. I don't think this will affect 𝐒𝐿𝐿 that much by itself. If you're a 𝐒𝐿𝐿 jungle main, I don't think this matters. If you were abusing the boosting strategy, it's probably time to stop. Ornn is getting a nerf, a little bit surprising considering tanks are so trash right now in the meta. Maybe he's just good in the pro scene, I'm not sure. He's getting his base health regen cut by 2 per 5, which is pretty big, and his W's flame width and flame length is getting hit fairly hard. Definitely don't play Ornn in solo queue at all. Singed is getting a nerf on his fling. It is going to be doing a lot less of the target's max percent health damage at its earlier ranks, which I'm all for. He's way too abusive of a champion. We're also seeing a nerf on his R stats granted by 5 at all ranks. And we're also seeing an update, Not Real Poison. Time Warp Tonic no longer grants movement speed during Insanity Potion. I think that's good, because if he was taking Time Warp Tonic, he was getting an extra loads of movement speed for a long period of time. This is a really big nerf to Singed players. I think Singed will still be a viable AP tank. I don't think he'll be good non-stop like he's been. Like, no matter what, if you pick Singed, it was always a good pick recently. Now if you do it, I think it's going to be a little bit more situational. This is something that really surprised me. A big nerf on Taric, pretty much all across the board. Massive damage nerfs to his E at early and later ranks. However, the armor scalability is going up a little bit. I don't think that matters. The only thing that really matters is the early and late game base damage on his E, since that's usually when he max first after getting 1 or 2 points in his heal. We're also seeing a 20-second increase at all ranks cooldown on his R, which is pretty big. This is definitely to try to shut down the Taric E boosting strategy. I'm not a huge fan of this because Taric support on its own isn't that good. I guess you have to do what you have to do to shut down the boosting strats though. Vladimir is finally getting a nerf, thank God. They're taking off 20% of the AP scalability on his E. This is definitely much deserved. I think Vladimir will still be very strong, but this is a step in the right direction. Zoe is getting a nerf on her W's movement speed, and she's also getting a nerf on its total damage ratio. This is very good. I feel like a lot of things they're doing this patch are going to help balance the game. Oh my god, the balance team balancing the game. Imagine that. And Gunzu's Rage Blade, which has been a really OP item, pretty much if you build it on anyone, it's strong. It's finally getting its nerf on attack damage and ability power scaling from 4% down to 2.5% on both. It's still going to be a good item if you're Kai'Sa, 𝐒𝐿𝐿, Varus, or any other champion that normally abuses it. But if you're just some random person like Tryndamere, it's not going to be quite as good. Domination is a garbage tree to take as your primary and usually as a secondary as well. It's getting very slight stat buffs whenever you take it with any tree. I don't think this is enough to make people want to take Domination, but it's a step in the right direction. Hell of Blades has been a garbage keystone since its release, so they're giving it another buff. Out of combat cooldown is only 4 seconds now. Really strong buff, and maximum time between auto attacks went up from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. It's going to be really hard for them to make Hell of Blades viable. The reason why is it doesn't have a proper place in League of Legends. In terms of late game power, lethal tempo is much stronger. It lasts for a long duration, giving even more attack speed. You might be saying, but what about the early game? Press the attack actually does more damage in the early and mid game and offers more utility, since it allows you and your teammates to do more damage to that target you apply it to. Hell of Blades is just a really awkward keystone in the domination tree, which isn't that good already. Domination tree is arguably the weakest tree standalone or taken as a secondary. We're seeing the unique summoner cap on Unsealed Spellbook go down by 2, and we're also seeing the cooldown reduction per summoner spell going up by 5 seconds. The early game snowball in League of Legends has been really strong. If you haven't noticed, whoever's got 1 or 2 kills in lanes, it pretty much meant the game, or at least if you were in higher elo, people learn how to take their leads and extend them, and the game became very stagnant and rushy just off of who kind of won the early game. To counteract this, they are making the death timers a little bit shorter. One thing I'm glad they did is they didn't make the death timers any shorter. In the late game, after level 8, it's unchanged, and before then, it's like just 4 or 5 seconds. So it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Hopefully it's a quality of life if you're getting stomped in lane though. This is something I don't like about League of Legends. You get punished for doing well. Let's say you get a couple of kills, the enemy team kills you, and then it's like you never even got those kills since they basically got all of the gold back for themselves. They're introducing a 2 kill bounty, so after you have 2 kills without dying, you're worth an extra 150 gold. Then once you get 3 kills without dying, you're worth an extra 300 gold. And then if you get up to 6 kills without dying, you're worth an extra 500 gold. Whenever you are level 6 and up, the additional gold per bounty gets bigger. Instead of being 25, level 6 and below, it turns into 50. So definitely in the mid and late game, if you have a whole lot of kills, you don't want to die because you're going to be given away to the enemy team. League of Legends is trying to make gold more single player based. So instead of kind of working as a team or getting free gold, they want it to be more individual because of players like 𝐒𝐿𝐿 who just constantly complain about how they're not climbing because they play the same exact way every game. Anyways, they are taking away 100 gold per player per turret down to 50 gold per player per turret. So going for the outer turrets in the early game isn't going to be quite as impactful. This is going to be a buff for later game champions because you're not going to get punished as hard when enemies are taking your outer turrets. A quality of life change to the jungle. Immolate, Bammy Cinder, Cinderhulk, and Tooth. Hunter's Talisman can now kill non-buff camp large monsters. The way it used to be is any kind of jungle item that killed monsters over time on its own, or whenever you attack it, it wasn't able to kill the large monster. So if you're taking the wolf camp, your Bammy Cinder wouldn't finish it off, or your Hunter's Talisman. It's really, really frustrating. I'm glad they're changing this so whenever I walk away, the Hunter's Talisman could theoretically finish it off if it was low enough. And I'm glad they kept it to where it doesn't finish off the buff, because whenever you're leashing it for like your mid laner or something and you don't want to take it, a lot of times that could take it way back then. So I'm glad they didn't change that. If you haven't noticed, League has a really weird history of inappropriate names. People could get through with names like nigger or hardcore rape or just really weird random aggressive names. I'm not really for censoring, but whenever it's names that are just like way over the top in League of Legends, it's kind of annoying. So I'm glad to see that their inappropriate name detection has gone from what they say, it's gone from bad to better. I don't know if that's true. I'm hoping it is. There are also quite a bit of bug fixes. Definitely check those out. There's 2 new skins that are coming out right now. There is the God King Darius. It looks really cool. I've actually played on these as the PvE. I will say they look cool, really sexy skins. They're very clunky. They're a little bit too big and they feel a little weird. But if you are a Darius or a Garen fanatic, you should probably try it out for yourself. And here is the God King Garen. It's basically just a blue version of the God King Darius. Same thing. It's very big, very sexy, but it's kind of clunky when you're playing as it. It feels a little bit too big almost. Like I said though, if you enjoy the champion, definitely try it out for yourself because it's just my opinion. And that is going to wrap up these patch notes. If you guys enjoyed it and want to support the channel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. My name is KingStix. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.